Hello there and welcome to this episode 30 of the Wellbeing Matters podcast with me, Gareth Boot.
And me, Sue Cowlishaw.
Episode 30, Sue.
And I'm glad you're not videoing them anymore.
Well, we're not going to video them, so straight off the bat, if you're watching this on YouTube, you will not see us. You will see a little graphic with some squiggly lines on. We just found that doing the videos was starting to put a bit too much pressure on production.
Yeah, and I was too, het up on what I look like. So go put some makeup on and do my hair and make sure I sat on the right side and everything. It was quite traumatic.
The thing is, when you take on something new, and we are relatively new to podcasting. I mean, I've been creating podcasts now for about 12 months, maybe longer. And you're testing and trying things all the time. You're experimenting. The problem with doing that sometimes is you get into a trap that there's not really a proper return on investment of your time. So for us, when we sit down with a microphone like this, what's it taking us a minute to set up?
Yeah.
Press a button, start going. When we have to worry about putting a camera in, it then creates almost like an occasion. So we have to then move the tables about upstairs and do
more, more jobs.
It was more jobs, and at the end of it, you lose the flow. So really what we're trying to get with these podcasts, and I always wanted from them, was more of a kind of casual talk. Us talking about something that the readers would we believe, find interesting.
Readers? Listeners.
Because I've just been blogging and I've got readers on my mind. So I thought we'd talk about today was the permission to change, the permission to give something up. Because this is an interesting... This came up in a conversation we've had recently about me and my diet. Because it wasn't that long ago, actually. In fact, when was it? I've got my computer in front of me so I can tell you. You can at least see if we're online. I think we talked about something way back in the... We talked about veganuary.
In January?
Well, actually, it was in January. It was the 8th of January. That was our episode 16. We talked about veganuary, and that was our talking to kind of vegan living and plant-based food.
Is that the one nobody listened to?
Actually, still not many people listen to it. No, it was probably one of the worst. So that's why this title won't include that. But we are going to mention it. So, bear in mind, if I know some people are getting a bit funny, but it's not what you think about is this. We're not going to talk specifically about the vegan food. We're just going to talk about my relationship at the moment to that kind of world of vegan eating, because there's been some changes, I think, in our diet recently, which would be remiss of us not to mention to people, because I don't want people to have the illusion that we've talked about veganuary, we talk about plant-based, and I think we have to be always open and honest on these podcasts about when we're changing, what we're experimenting with. Because if we were to say now that we were vegan, that would be a bit of a lie.
But we've never said that.
I know that, but people assumed it. So
yeah, people call us vegans.
What we ended up doing was we experimented with eating less meat.
Well, we didn't eat any.
Well, exactly. But we started off by eating less, then we eventually went to eating nothing. And then over the course of the last few months, we've changed a little bit of our diet. We're not eating meat again yet, but there are some other things coming. So this is not solely about that, but part of what we are talking about is that, because we're talking about the permission to change. What I think is interesting, Sue, and I want your views on this, is I think sometimes we can fall foul of taking something on, maybe a project or a new lifestyle choice, and we're so vocal about it at first, because you tend to be, don't you? When you take on something new, it's the big deal to you.
Yeah, but it's not a good idea.
And then what tends to happen is, after a period of time, you may be interest in it wanes, or it's not quite for you. But because you're heavily invested in telling people that you were doing this, you kind of almost, so what I'm looking for, belligerent.
But we never really did that. We were very low-key, and we didn't kind of mention it very much.
Well, this is, again, I'm not talking specifically about vegan food here. Let's not get into that right now. We're going to come back to that. I'm talking about when we've taken things on before that we've tried, and generally people. So, for instance, if you take on, let's say you take on an idea that you are going to simplify your living. We talked about that last week, I think, didn't we? Keeping it simple. Well, you take on an idea to simplify your household. You tell everybody how good it is. You've read some stuff. You're really excited. But then you start working towards doing that. And then you feel it's not just maybe quite for you, or the way you're going to do it's different to what you first thought.
So have you got an example of something like that you've done?
I think... I'm going to come straight back to talking about vegans.
Or anything else?
Yeah, I would think I've done that before certainly on business fronts, especially relating to doing stuff on social media, saying I would do something every day. Yeah. So at the moment on my website, I am blogging every day. And at the time, it seemed like a really good idea to blog every day. It was simple. The idea was, could I create flow in my life, could I create a habit of creating some kind of written content every day, putting that into a blog post, and then doing that every day. And when I first took it on, which was a little while ago now, actually, it's been going for 2 or 3 months, it was relatively straightforward. But then over the period of time, it started to feel less and less like something I wanted to do.
Well, my question here is, why did you decide that in the first place? What was your reason?
I wanted to create a structure. I get the sense that with where my career is going and what I'm focusing on, the ability to create written content is very, very important.
But why every day?
Because every day creates that kind of routine. So it's not something I'm doing because all of a sudden the kind of mood texts me, oh, I fancy writing right now. I'm turning it from being something I do when I fancy doing it into something I do on a daily basis because I discipline myself to do it.
And how long did you set out to do this for?
I said initially I'd do 30 days.
Right.
I did 30 days, and then I knocked it down to doing it 3 times a week instead of every day. And this is never on a weekend, by the way. It's only 5 days, Monday to Friday. And then last week I went back to saying I'll do it every day, and then it just has really stuck. And I realised what's holding me in this place of keeping doing that is a bit of ego, really. And I'm kind of alluding to the fact that most people go into things with the best intentions. It doesn't work maybe as they want it to work, and instead of being flexible and looking at what solutions there could be, you kind of keep going on in this determined way because you feel that if you change tack or change direction, then somehow you're going to lose faith. Yeah,
it just reminded me of tree pose, strong roots and flexible branches.
Oh, you love to bring it back to yoga, don't you, Susan?
Well, the wind changes. The seasons change, everything changes. I suppose if you go into something and you're a little bit adamant about it, a little bit, what's the word?
Adamant.
If you're very vocal, what's the word? Like
then you'd be
like a terrorist.
What do you mean like a terrorist?
Like what they're called, those people.
Extremist.
If you go into it with an extreme view that this is the way I'm going to do it, this is the best way, there is no other way, then you're going to feel a bit daft if you want to change your mind. So perhaps kind of like just doing something a little bit quieter or thinking about it more before you start it as to why you're doing that.
Well, I think that's an interesting point and one we should explore because I have to say, we will take this back now to talking about our plant-based living. I've struggled with it in the last couple of months.
Yeah, I mean, we will be coming up to 2 years, not completely 2 years, but we started in October.
So we're not far off it.
2018, and we did an experiment. We said we were, it was my idea, and I wanted to go plant-based because I was becoming uncomfortable about taking part in anything to do with animals. It didn't feel right to me to be using or exploiting, or whatever word you want to call it, for our own good to the extent we were. And so I started to feel uncomfortable about that. And when I voiced it to you, we decided we would be plant-based in the house, but if you went out with your kids or you went out somewhere else, you would basically eat what you wanted. That was the idea. So I was a little bit more into it than you were because my reasons were different. Because my secondary reason was health. I'd read such a lot, and I wanted to have a go. I wanted to experiment over a period of time and see, because I need a lot of energy. I teach a lot of yoga. I go to the gym. I like to walk up big hills. I do need a lot of energy. And this was the thing that came out when I read about plant-based, is the extra energy you got. So that was like a secondary reason for me. But yeah, so you came along with me, and I don't know if you wanted to, but you did.
Well, you talk about primary and secondary reasons there. My primary reason was health. At the time, if you remember, I'd gone into running about a month beforehand when I started this. And I wanted to experiment with the idea of would a dramatic change in diet help me with some of the challenges I faced. I wasn't particularly fit at that time, and I felt that I wasn't getting any fitter despite the fact...
You did have some inflammation as well.
Yeah, I had a lot of aches and pains in knees. So when I read some of the stuff that you were talking about and you were showing me, I thought it was interesting to look at it and say, well, why don't I give this a go for a period of time? So we went into it with different reasons. I didn't really have any kind of strong opinion of animal welfare to start with. Then all of a sudden I started to get a bit more information that you were sharing with me, and I thought, well, actually, I did become aware of animal welfare, and it was important to me. I thought, some of the meat, and especially the dairy we produce, is probably produced in a way that I don't like. So that was my reason for going into it. And that held for about 12 months. I've enjoyed the physical side of it, getting fitter, and there certainly has been a massive difference in my fitness. I don't think anybody can deny that knows me. But recently I found myself just really starting to question why I am still continuing to eat plant-based. And it was interesting because I realised the reason I'm not eating meat is because of you.
Yeah, you said that, didn't you? So when did this start to appear?
I would have said it would started sometime in about March or April. I started to feel that I was missing something in my diet. I didn't feel evangelical enough about the concept of plant-based and veganism. It wasn't something I really bothered myself about. It's something I did, but I didn't tell many people. You were much more of a vocal person around it. You would write blogs on your Facebook about it. You'd talk to your friends about it. For me, it was just something I almost kind of did in a quiet way. Mm. But clearly, because we had a couple and because clearly we interact with people as a couple, we both got perceived in this kind of, we go to people's houses and say things like, oh, we've got some vegan food for you. I think, okay, that's lovely, but, that's not exactly how we eat. And I started to get this thing again, which came back up for me, and it used to be there, which is I can't align myself with vegans and the concept. The word vegan I don't like. I never did like it. And maybe that's an old pattern I'm running inside. Maybe that's an old perception. But I think I have an inbred, or certainly a learned belief and understanding of what a vegan is. And I didn't like them. Not that they're horrible people. I just didn't like the way they went about pushing their thing. That was a little bit too much. So over the course of this year, I have noticed myself, and you'd have to be in on this too, I've noticed myself, we gave ourselves permission to eat a little bit of fish. So we did tend to have, we'd have maybe a seafood pizza or a seafood risotto. We started to eat seafood.
Yeah, a few prawns and
a few prawns. And I was kind of okay with that. I enjoyed that. And then we had a couple of times when we started to have a bit of fish, as in a proper fish fillet rather than mollusks and...
Mollusks.
Mollusks,
are there things in
shellfish?
Shells?
So because we started off with shellfish. And I found myself feeling slightly better in two ways. One is I felt I had a lot more freedom with the choice to give myself the permission to eat some fish. I felt I had more freedom when I went out. I had the freedom of choice around food that I didn't have when I was completely plant-based. Because even if you go plant-based and you choose to go, and we will use that word, vegan, then there's very few places you can actually have a vegan anything. It's not truly vegan. There's a lot of vegetarian. Every restaurant will have a vegetarian option, obviously, but unless you go to a steakhouse, even they have a vegetarian option. So I started to feel that I was not comfortable anymore, not eating the meat. I don't know why I'm doing it, and that started in about March or April. But
you came to me. It was only like a week ago, and you said, "I realised the only reason I'm not eating meat is because of you."
That's it.
If you weren't here, I'd be eating.
I'd be eating meat. It's as simple as that. I almost kind of feel like I'm not saying I feel like I'm missing out. I just feel restricted, and I don't like the restriction it gives me. I'm not saying for a minute. I think I've seen the benefits. Now, I don't know whether my fitness and my lack of inflammation and my lack of pains and aches. I mean, currently I'm on a run streak of about 110 days. And although I don't go hell for leather every day, I'm out every day. And I've managed to maintain that, despite the fact we've done a couple of very long walks. I've done some very quick runs, by my standards anyway, quick. I haven't had any aches and pains. Now, is that down to the fact I'm fitter now, or is it down to the diet? So my concern is if I did start to go back to eating animal protein other than fish, then how would that start to affect that? So yes, I think if it wasn't for you, I would be back to eating meat. So what I wanted to talk about in this podcast was how many times
Can we make
people...
it clear I don't make you? I don't force you.
It's not that you don't force me. This is more about... We have looked at things over the time since we've kind of gone plant-based. We've even considered looking at doing some plant-based food and selling that. We a lot of things have kind of been semi-emotionally bought into with this plant-based. That we could have gone down a path where we end up having a plant-based takeaway and a vegan takeaway, and one of the owners is eating meat. Which I have to be clear, I'm not eating meat yet. I haven't eaten meat yet. But I am taking on more fish. I think we used to average fish about once a month. Now it's once a week.
Yeah.
And I think a couple of weeks ago, just because we did some picnicking and because of the way that the food we bought from Asda fell out and it worked, we ended up having fish about 3 times that week. And that week I did start to feel much more comfortable with that. I didn't feel like some kind of leper, which I did get a sense I was feeling. It was only, you've not put me under this pressure. Nobody else has really. It's just something I'm aware of. So I think being able to give yourself permission to review what you've done, look at it again, and then come up with potentially another solution to that is important. So I'm at the stage now and I'm still investigating what I'm feeling about this, which starts to sound a little bit kind of, a bit way out there, doesn't it?
So when you thought about it, was that the only thing that came up? You felt restricted? Because don't forget, at this moment in time, we haven't been into a restaurant since March because they haven't been open for a start off. So where did you feel the restriction? Which part of your day or your week did you feel restricted?
I'll tell you what it feels like. I feel like this last 12 months, I've made a lot of changes. I mean, I remember when I first started running, you thought, this won't last.
Oh.
Did you not think that?
Yeah.
Exactly. So you didn't think it would hold up. And I've got to be honest, at the time, I was unsure. I had confidence that I could keep going forward. And I realised that there's so many things in the last couple of years that I don't do anymore. That I'm kind of feeling like now, I do all these things and I've tried to. I feel I'm a much calmer character. I'm a lot more focused. I'm a lot more disciplined, and it just felt as though, do you know what? I don't want to have the added restriction of something else I don't do, which is not eating meat.
I understand what you mean, because it was interesting the other day. I saw a sign and it said, when the restaurant started opening, and it said grill and bar, and I thought, I won't be going there then. And then you think of your friends. We don't have many, we have some. I think of my family. We tend to get left out a little bit more not drinking. So to not eat the same as everybody else as well does put us a little bit in a little bit of a group of our own. The thing is, people that really care about you, they don't mind, and you feel quite comfortable around them because they just accept it. But when you go out and about and a little bit further afield, it's a tricky one. And you also have this emotional. I've had thinking about Sunday lunch, Sunday roasts. I had that thought the other day. We never really had one anyway. Nobody ever invites us for one. We never go out for one. But all of a sudden it felt that it was like the big thing that you missed and really wanted.
Well, you talked there about bar and grill, and I would think it would be very unusual for me now. In fact, I would never say impossible, because that sets you up for a massive failure if you want it to. And I don't think you should ever say never, because never's a long time. I would find it very strange if I contemplated or drifted back into drinking. I don't think that's a possibility I even contemplate, because I know for me, I've tried it too many times to go back to normal drinking over the years, especially in the 90s, to try to regulate that, to know that that's not something I can do. So I'm very clear on that. There is reasons I don't drink, and there will be reasons why I don't drink now, and they'll still apply in another 5, 10. As long as I live, I will not be able to go back and regulate my drinking. There are just some people that can't do that. And anybody listening to this that thinks they can, I can certainly assure you can't. And no matter how many times you try to prove me wrong, you will find yourself falling over that big problem, which is some people simply cannot drink alcohol comfortably or sensibly, and those people should not do it at all. And it's very sad to see somebody continue to try to prove that wrong, because it becomes the horrible squirrel trap they get caught into of stopping, staying sober for a bit, then drinking again. So I'm very comfortable with the concept I don't drink, and I have no problem in telling people I don't drink. I never use the word alcoholic. I don't like that term. I think it's very derogatory. I think it doesn't serve you to class yourself as that. So I'm clear with that. Now, the thing with the meat, there's no real negative benefit for me eating it. I'm not going to, if I ate a steak tomorrow, I won't wake up the next day with a headache, find out I crashed my car, or I've been arrested for being drunk in charge of a side of beef. It wouldn't happen. So I'm starting to realise that for me, I'm missing something around that concept of consuming meat. And I've put myself on a path which says, I do this. And I've now got to sit back and consider what the next move is for me. I've not jumped into this. I've not just had an idea one day, it's Monday morning, I think I should eat some steak, and by Monday lunchtime I'm eating a piece of fillet. That's not where I'm at with this. I think I've got the discipline and the ability to step back and look at this from all angles, because I'm interested to why it's come up. And one of the things I wanted to do more on these podcasts and through Better 27 is talk about these real life things that happen. Because it can look really simple to follow a lifestyle till you follow it, then things happen. We're nearly 2 years down the line and this is coming up now.
Well, yeah, that was going to be my next question. Why do you think it's come up now?
I think there's a lot happening for us at the moment. We've had a very difficult time with coronavirus in this country. I think we've navigated it as well as we could have done. I think we've kind of in some ways thrived through it. Which I'm always reluctant to say that, because there are people that have struggled a great deal and people have lost life. So it's not something I want to say, I've loved lockdown, it's been great, because I don't want to sound like I'm sounding like I'm benefited from what has been a very traumatic situation for some people. But I think over the course of the last couple of weeks, we've also started to focus more on this business, Better 24/7. There's a lot more kind of pressure coming with that. We have to turn this now into a sustainable business. We have got a bit of a launch date for it to go properly live all on the 19th of July.
Mm-hmm.
And although we've had this podcast going for a while and there is social media platforms, we've not populated them apart from the podcast. And I realise now that some of me is starting to feel some pressure around that. And I'm going back into a time thinking I need to be more effective. And I don't feel as effective as I felt 5 years ago when I ran the last business I ran. And I think, why am I not feeling effective? And there's a bit of me putting these two things together, right? You're not quite just as, how you used to be. You don't feel quite as switched on sometimes. And there's kind of, I've got to be careful how I say this without trying to sound silly. I'm quite an harsh character, and I'm quite a focused character, and I used to be. And I don't feel as focused and as hard as I used to be. I don't feel that kind of side of me is there anymore. Not to the extent it was. And I feel like in some way, shape, or form, that's going to affect what we do with Better 24/7. I don't feel quite as... do you know what I mean? I can't explain it. Let me see if I can articulate this better, because this is poor.
But no offence, you've been like this for a few years before you stopped eating meat.
No.
You lost your focus.
I'm tired of giving stuff up, because everything I gave up I enjoyed. So all this stuff I've done over the years and all these things I've done have been things I really enjoyed. And I mean, a lot of my lifestyle in the past was pretty poor at times. I had some very poor practices, some practices which quite honestly weren't right. But I enjoyed all of them. So I can't look back at my time drinking, or maybe even in my days of womanizing and stuff like this, where I said, they were horrible times and I'm really glad they're not there anymore. Actually, there were some bad times, but also good times. And I think I find it interesting now that I'm getting to a stage where I just don't feel at the moment like I want to be tied into something else I've given. Oh, you've given up this, now you're giving up eating meat. It's not sitting well with me. And it's starting to make me feel uncomfortable in a way that I don't know why. I mean, all I'm asking to do is I'm eating, bits of cabbage.
So why haven't you gone out and eaten any meat?
Because I don't want to jump into this. I think you've got to be careful when these things come up that you properly look at all the facts. What do you gain by not doing it? What do you gain by going back to do it? Why is it coming up? Is it a flash in the pan? Is it just to do with the moment? Because if you're not careful, you can react to things based on a feeling you get at the time, which could come up from a number of reasons. Is it at the moment I'm just not feeling 100%? Am I doing too much exercise and I'm feeling tired? It's been a long time since we've had a proper break or a holiday. Is that affecting me thinking? What I've become really good at, I think, in the last 12 to 18 months is stepping back and analysing more. I've become much more analytical without jumping in and making decisions based on emotion. Because making emotional decisions are very, very bad, especially if you're angry. I'm angry, you make a decision, and that can be a very wrong decision. You should always sleep on it. So although I've slept a long time since I've started exercise, I'm still mulling over what it means. Because for me now, I want to give myself the permission and be comfortable with giving myself that permission to say, okay, let's assume you do want to eat some meat. That's perfectly fine. Without then all of a sudden this big spectre of doom coming over me and saying, I told you. Because I'm also aware that the ego works in a couple of ways. The ego sometimes makes you do things that look like you're doing it for the right reasons, then batters you afterwards. It's like now you're coming up to how many, 300 and how many days now without a drink?
355.
So you've almost done a year. Now imagine now if you had a drink now.
That's what I dreamt last night, that I had a drink.
How did it feel?
Not pleasant, because in my dream I had 2 weeks before I got to a year. And I had this glass of wine and I drank it. And I thought, don't have any more, nobody'll know. Just forget about it, it was just a mistake. But I was battling to not have another drink. I just had one because I thought I could get away with one. It was strange. It wasn't nice.
Dreams come up like that. But what that dream highlights is exactly what I'm talking about, where if you then go off based on the decision of I'm going to have a drink, and let's say you did have a drink in real life, you'd feel terrible you didn't it a year. But yet no one set you a target and said you've got to do a year. You've set that
Only
target.
Me. Well, and I didn't even set that target at the beginning. I set a target for a month, and then 2 months, then 6 months, and then I got to 6 months and think, a year.
But now you could give yourself permission to have an odd glass of wine. There's no reason why you can't, because you don't have the same, in my view, and again, you could prove this wrong, you don't come across to me as somebody who has got an element of a drink problem that I had.
I don't think I had a drink problem like you had, but at times I felt that I wanted to give it up, but didn't think I could.
Right. Okay.
So that became an issue, feeling like I wanted to stop drinking, but I couldn't. So that was a bit of an issue when I look back. Okay,
so I suppose me with the meat thing, I want to just make sure this is not a decision I'm making based on, just not feeling 100% at the moment. There's a lot of frustration around the moment. I feel frustrated. We've got a lot to do. I'm completely and utterly pissed off with the likes of social media, because we've got, what it appears to me at the moment is, as far as this company Better 24/7 is concerned, we've got a huge mountain to climb. And in order to climb that mountain, we're going to have to use aspects of social media, which I don't agree with. I've become more and more adamant about how poor social media is for us. I mean, I think Facebook is just an absolute joke as to what it's doing, how it's behaving, and we're allowing him to. Zuckerberg and his cronies.
But there are other platforms nowadays,
no, but not to the extent that. The reason people use Facebook is because everyone's on Facebook, everyone understands it.
But it won't be like that forever.
Well, no, but it's like that now. And we're sat here with very few followers. Well, we've got no followers on the Facebook page because we've not really launched it yet, apart from a couple of people that have found it that know us. And now we've got to get to a stage where, in order for us to make this work, we have to grow an audience, create a product, get some of that audience to buy that product, and keep that system going to allow us not to have to face the fact that it didn't work out and we have to start something else. So it's a huge task in front of us. And I think with that, there's a lot of frustration, because there is a bit of me thinking, go back to what you used to do, Gareth. I found the last few weeks challenging, because I have to say that my belief in human behaviour has been tested over this coronavirus.
So is it the meat that you're missing, or is it something else?
I don't know. That's the thing. It could be what the meat represents.
Does it represent your past? Does it represent a time you were different?
I don't know. All I'm saying is I'm giving myself permission to contemplate this now. and look at what this might look like for me in the next few weeks.
But you did actually think of eating some chicken the other day, and you got there was a little bit of a barrier in your way, wasn't there, love?
Oh, barrier where I couldn't buy chicken from chicken shop. Yeah, I went to buy some chicken wings. There's a place in Huddersfield called Marsden's. They make great chicken wings, and I thought I was in Huddersfield.
You were like, I'm going for some chicken wings.
I'm off for some chicken wings, and when I got there, you couldn't order them because you had to order it from an app, and I couldn't, I didn't have time. And so in some ways, I always take those signs. Is this me? Is this me being kind of pushed off track? Is this me being guided by some kind of, I don't know, higher power?
Higher power.
I'm not going to stick myself in a bracket that says I'm only going to do this and that's how I'm going to live forever. It doesn't make sense to do that. And I don't like where I've got to with my mindset around the plant-based stuff.
Because I studied Ayurveda, which is a science of life, which is kind of like a Sanskrit science. It's the sister science of yoga. We look at different body types and how some people thrive on certain foods, some people get inflamed, some people get overweight. Everybody's different. They've all got different constitutions. And we believe that not everybody will thrive on a plant-based diet. Not everybody will. So it's up to you really to find out what suits you. I don't ever advocate going to eat cheap meat, loads of it. Never. I don't see the point in that. But if you feel that, or if anybody feels the need to bring in a little bit of animal protein, well, you're going to have to look at that. Because I find occasionally when I would like some, it's just like a throwback. It's like a memory that comes and it just comes and goes. But I really don't believe everybody thrives on a plant-based diet. I don't think everybody should eat loads of meat, by the way.
When we take something on and we attach ourselves to it and it becomes part of our kind of personality, or it becomes part of what people know us for, it's very difficult for people to stop doing that. And I think that if people are doing that on a regular basis, you lead yourself to living a life which is, you feel like you're lying to yourself to start with, because it's nearly not what you want to be doing, and you're lying to others by making them believe that you're actually enjoying this way of living. Now there was a bit of me